And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Monday, February 26th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Matt Belman. We are brought to you by Playback. 4-game slate ahead of us. And if you watched the strategy show or the process this morning, it's a little bit different now. No Tyler Hero, no Terry Rozier. We all believe it's DeLon Wright season. If it ends up being DeLon Wright season, we will find that out in the future. But for now, that is the assumption. We also want you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. What's going on, man? How are you? How's your weekend?
Solid, pretty unspectacular, but we'll take it. Man, I don't know. I guess in response to your pseudo question, how could it not be DeLon Wright season? Like, not saying he's for sure going to get there from a fantasy perspective, but like, how is he not going to play enough minutes where it matters?
As long as he starts, I don't think that
Yeah.
you can do anything other than put him directly into your lineup. Like, he's a real solid NBA player that should be in rotations for good teams, and he's the flat 3K. Like, if you know that he can be out there to start, you really don't have much of a choice at that point, because it takes like 25 fantasy points on a day like today for him to just be like, good. And even that can be lower. If you're 90% owned, you can get away with like 18 or 19 just because there aren't any other alternatives. If he doesn't start, that's where I think it starts to get really weird, because you have to open up your mind to the chance that like he might still not play.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I will say, like, about the Miami news, I'm kind of happy we just got it out of the way because it makes the slate at least easier to talk about. Sure, there's an edge in just waiting for that game, for that news to come out, but
yeah,
at least we have a better idea of where this slate stands as of now, and it presumably shouldn't change too much, I wouldn't think.
no, I mean, heading into lock, we're just to bury the lead since we'll talk about it in a bit. He's in 100% of my lineups. I'm maxing that crazy $4 100,000 entry contest, but he's going to be 80+% owned without question. The problem is, there's not a ton you could swap around on if he doesn't happen to be named the starter, but we're all sort of expecting him to just be named the starter. They don't have enough alternatives to do it. But yeah, it's one of the easiest lock button plays you'll have in any slate that exists this season, because you just don't normally get like real NBA players at the flat 3K when they have to play.
Yeah, and that 25 could be low for what he does tonight.
Yep. Yeah, like it's not going to take much. He projects like no other person on the slate, and it's not even close. Like, he'd be a good play if he were 4,400.
Yeah, especially tonight where we just don't have plays like that. So this is one where, yeah, if he's starting, you just play him and move on, and you have 7 other roster spots to do what you want with them. And I guess it's the type of thing where if he's 90% owned, then 10% of the field is hopefully dead from just not playing it.
Yeah, you're pretty well paying the rake unless he just explodes. Like, your only saving grace there is injury, really, because if he's out there for 20 something minutes, he would have to do nothing. He would like it takes so little to get to where you need to be here. We're going to break that down in a bit.
I would only say that it is interesting tonight, just in the sense that there aren't like a ton of spend up options.
There aren't. You're not freeing up what you're really doing is just like really giving yourself the opportunity to have as many 7K dudes as you want.
Mm-hmm. And like, I would say that, yeah, most of the field will probably be dead on a good DeLon Wright showing here. But there are certainly ways where if he has 25 fantasy points, there are other type of bills that just get there.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to get into all of that throughout this show. 4 games to talk about, so we have plenty of time to break it all down. As I asked for before, hit that like button if you haven't done it yet. The first game up, Toronto Raptors 6-point dogs in Indiana. We've already got some narratives for this one, whether that be Bruce Brown, Pascal Siakam. We know how this one works. These guys have been involved with each other recently. Raptors have everybody that's normally available. That's another interesting part of today. We don't have too much weird stuff going on. The Pacers are trying to complicate it a little bit with Jalen Smith, but it won't matter because it's a 7 o'clock start. We have 30% ownership coming into Scotty Barnes, 20 coming into RJ Barrett, and around 10 for Bruce Brown, Emmanuel Quickly, Jakob Poeltl. I'm going to have you started off with Scotty Barnes. He's point guard, small forward eligible, 8,900. Basically the same situation on FanDuel. Doesn't have guard forward, but small forward, power forward, 30% owned there. Are you seeing Scotty Barnes in the same light as the ownership and in the same light as our optimal rate for today?
I don't like him quite as much. I don't think it's anything against him. I think it's more that I like all the other guys around him slightly more.
Yeah.
That said, he's got great eligibility. Obviously, you can roster him basically wherever you want. Insert player against Indiana. So, like, I'm never going to fault anyone with rostering anyone, especially a stud against Indiana here. He looks really good. The ownership's there, certainly, but that's not surprising. When I did my contrarian article today, the only stud really coming in under-owned was Halliburton, and he's still projected for decent ownership. So I get it. For me, someone playing limited lineups, I'm totally fine. I'm not not playing Scotty Barnes. Just not sure I get to him with personally liking Bam more and other guys in that range just a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat as you, and I feel like I have him projected pretty well. I got him at 1.28 fantasy points per minute for this game. That's higher than the rate that he's been at over the last 30 days. I think that matches up with a pace up spot that the Raptors are seeing against a not very good defense. But I only have 9%, and I was surprised that flexibility is just there. I just happen to be getting to other guys. I wouldn't talk anybody out of Scotty Barnes. This is a 4-game slate, and he, without question, to me, looks like the best option from Toronto. It just happens to be one of the places that I'm getting a little different. And on a day like today, where I need to beat 100,000 plus people, I tend to be a little bit more different than I normally would, just because I'm trying to not chop with, 40 people tonight. And now that we have already turned this into a 7 roster spot game instead of an 8 roster spot game, you kind of have to turn, or at least I personally am trying to turn those dials up a little bit more. It's a similar story for RJ Barrett, who's 20% owned, has that guard forward eligibility. He was out last time. We have him 20% optimal, 20% owned. I agree with all of that stuff, but I am a little bit lighter on him too.
Yeah, same, especially with the Miami news. I've just seen myself be under on these Raptors a little bit. I think the other part of it is that I don't think they're severely overpriced or anything, but I think they're fairly priced. There's not a ton of meat on the bone at 8,900 for Scotty Barnes. Now, the matchup is great. The slate is small. So if he ends up just having a good game for him, you probably want him.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, there's other guys in pretty much every one of the Toronto's guys' price range that I like more. Doesn't mean I think they're bad plays. And if they end up nuking the slate, I mean, they're facing Indiana, so I wouldn't be shocked. I just don't think it's the route I'm going to take tonight.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat. This is the team I'm most under the field on. I only have less Brooklyn. I have more of every other team. So this is sort of my differentiation point right out of the gate, just being lighter on Toronto. I'm under on every single player that's pulling any ownership, whether that's Quickly, who's 11% owned, only in 3% of my stuff. Pirtle's 10% owned. I have 7. Bruce Brown's 9. I have 2. Gary Trent 6. I have 1. Kelly Olynyk's 5. I have 1. I'm just light across the board on Toronto, which I don't hate.
No, because I think it's like I said, there's at each of these guys' price points, there's solid pivots. And I know this doesn't mean a ton, but RJ Barrett was out last game. I think the other Raptors saw their price increase just a tiny bit. So that's not doing them any favors for me. I like the Miami guys more, and the Miami guys are slightly cheaper. So that's kind of how I see it.
Okay. Does anybody stand out to you from Toronto? Do any of those shorter owned dudes? Because we've got some positive leverage on Jakob Poeltl, some positive leverage on Bruce Brown, who has that guard forward eligibility at a very different price point, only 4,500, probably because he's a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy. But do you see anything for the Toronto guys that aren't getting the same sort of love as Barrett and Barnes?
Not really. The idea of getting to Poeltl at lower ownership in a good matchup against Indiana, I think would probably be my favorite one. Just really hard for me to put it into practice tonight at that price point at the center position. So if I were multi-entering, he's only 9% owned. I think it's pretty easy to say maybe I'd want 15% of him. Playing minimal lineups, don't think I'll get to him. That said, if any one of these guys was my last guy in, I'm not playing. They're facing Indiana and they're good.
Yeah, that's the problem with a four gamer like this, where ignoring Barnes and Barrett, who are obviously getting the love, quickly, Trent, Pirtle, Brown, even Kelly Olynyk, like all of those guys are very, very viable as the final piece into a lineup. Like you shouldn't regret having it. The minutes are there for most of them. The price tags aren't all that problematic. They just don't stand out in the same way that some of the other guys do across the rest of the slate.
At least not to me, and sounds like to you too.
Yep. Yeah, like 33% optimal, 30% owned for Scotty Barnes. I agree. He does look good. It just happens to be I feel like I can grab a little bit of savings somewhere else and go the other way. But I'm very happy to have the Scotty Barnes lineups, the RJ Barrett lineups for sure. The only guy that I'm looking at here that I wish I had more of is just it's always quickly for me, just because I'm happy that I'm not getting him, but I got so much for so long that I kind of wanted to be there whenever he like inevitably pays me off. But I don't want that to be today because I don't have him.
I do think he looks like Podol in the sense that like the ownership's not there on him. He's probably too expensive for his median outcome, but he's obviously got upside. So yeah, I mean, again, I can't fault you for not having any. If I were playing, even if you're playing 150, people are under the misconception that you can just play anyone. That's not even close to the truth. So
yeah,
I do think that Podol would still be my preferred like sleeper option, if you will, from Toronto, even over quickly.
I get it. And, he obviously has, we're talking about a guy that's normally in the like 1.1 to 1.15 fantasy points per minute range. Been playing better as of late, 1.21 over the past 30 days. And any matchup against the Pacers is going to make you feel pretty good about it. So I do like that shout at 6,400. He is the guy that I have the most of outside of Barnes and Barrett. So I'm with you. Now, the Pacers side, we've got 20 to 25% ownership coming into Benedict Mathurin and Tyrese Halliburton. We've got around 10 to 15 coming into Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam, and then little bits for the rest of these guys. Only thing that we have to keep our eye on right now, Aaron Nesmith is out. Jalen Smith is questionable. He's been questionable pretty regularly. Didn't play in his first game back when he was questionable. Did get the backup center run the last time out. That is what I'm hoping he does, but I don't have nearly as much as I had earlier. This game is wild to me. I want to get your thoughts on Tyrese Halliburton here because I have none of him. And I am turning basically all of Tyrese Halliburton into Jalen Brunson. I'm choosing between the two and picking Brunson. That doesn't leave me feeling good, but I do have Brunson grading out as a better play personally. We have a ton of positive leverage on Tyrese Halliburton. So it appears that I am fighting upstream right now.
We do. But I'll say, and like I said, I actually wrote up Halliburton and Jalen Smith as two of the top leverage plays in our tools today. So not surprised at all you were getting to Smith a lot. We'll see what happens when he's rolled in, or obviously it's not going to be played if he's rolled out. As far as Halliburton goes, again, I did write him up as being contrarian. His ownership has risen.
Yeah.
So has his optimal percentage. This is tricky for me because like he is the highest leverage play on the slate right now. I could see him. I don't know. Actually, you're saying that you're not playing him. I'm currently not playing him. Like, I feel like he's going to be higher owned than we're projecting. But then again, like, I'm not going to do anything with that. I'm not going to put that into practice either because that'd be foolish. So as it stands right now, I think Halliburton looks great. You're prioritizing Brunson. I'm prioritizing De'Aaron Fox. I know they're a little bit of a different price point, but it's
I'm also prioritizing Fox if it helps.
So yeah, if you're prioritizing Fox and Brunson, very hard to get to that Halliburton, not just salary because of position wise too. So
I have 50% of both of those guys. So you start running out of roster spots.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it makes sense. Like there's a bunch of good plays tonight. You can't play them all. Halliburton looks good.
Yeah.
But the goal isn't just to make the most leverage lineup. So there's other spots to get different also.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear here. This is not at all me telling anybody don't play Tyrese Halliburton. He looks great as a pay-up option. It doesn't take much to wiggle those top couple guys around at 95, 9,700 and Sabonis at 10-2. Like, reasonable minds can very easily get to a lot more. Like, you can have 50% of Halliburton and none of Jalen Brunson and be on the opposite side of me, and I don't think either one of us are like making any like taking any weird stands. It just happens to be that's how it like they're both the same ownership right now. 22% to Halliburton, 24% to Brunson. Brunson's $200 more expensive. The minute ceiling on Brunson is certainly higher. However, he's facing a Detroit team where he might not need to play 37 minutes because the Pistons aren't very good. I think it's a really interesting just like pivot point for the entire slate because you're probably leaving one of Fox. Like you're not playing all three of Fox, Halliburton, and Brunson. You're kind of trying to pick between those guys right out of the gate. So if Halliburton goes nuts early, like I could pretty much just stop watching.
Same. And I was thinking about this as you were talking. Not only are you not playing them because of what I said, like the eligibility and the salary, there's DeLon Wright. So
yep.
He's the
I've already locked down a guard place,
exactly
a guard spot.
You literally can only play two of those guys, and same with me. So playing, I think Brunson and Halliburton together and not playing Fox is also completely viable.
Yeah,
I'm probably not going to play it that way because I think Price is just the best value of the three. But yeah, all three of them look really, really good, no doubt about it.
They do. What about the rest of this team? Because I am getting to Benedict Mathurin, who's 24% owned. Now we have him with massive negative leverage. He's in 48% of my stuff. He's the only guy that I have from the Pacers in double digits.
Yeah, he looks probably the best for me too here. Price starting to rise, but I'd imagine, I don't know how long Neesmith's going to be out, but he'll be 6K plus. So he still looks good. He's obviously got upside. So I'm with that. He looks like a really good just cog in the machine type in all formats.
Yeah, guard forward eligibility, 5,500, matchup solid, minutes are there. Like every little piece of that certainly works for me. And you know, Tyrese Halliburton, while a star, is the kind of star you want to play alongside of because he's not looking for a shot nearly as much as even Jalen Brunson to a degree. We're talking about two guys that have a points prop that's like 10 points different from each other. But Halliburton's going to dime people up. Mathurin can very easily be on the receiving end of that. And it still allows him to take whatever shots he wants because Halliburton's like a 23% usage dude. We're not talking about somebody getting up over that 30% mark. What else do you like from the Pacers?
I do wonder, though, based on that, and I haven't looked into this at all. Mathurin is much more offensively minded, if you will, than Neesmith. So I don't know. Does it hurt Halliburton? Like, do we have enough sample size to know? Like, is it just neutral? Because I could see that working out either way, to be honest.
My guess off the top of my head is that it's probably neutral. Just because this doesn't strike me as a team, whether it's, you know, Rick Carlisle running the show or even just like, I think everybody wants Halliburton to have the ball and be the person that's like putting everybody in place. It's hard to say any different. They're the number 2 offense in the league. I don't think it'd go well for Mathurin if he started making decisions for himself too much. Like if he's cooking, by all means, like, you know, keep going. But if he's taking anything bad, I think he hears about it really quickly.
I agree with that.
Like they're going to be like, all right, Doug McDermott, get on out there. Hey, Benedict Mathurin, come over here. Stop doing that shit and give Tyrese Halliburton the ball. It should be the real easy way to sum it all up.
For sure. Yeah, and like I said, I could see it playing out a little bit of both ways, which to me just means it's probably neutral too.
What about the rest of these guys? We got Siakam, revenge narrative. You got Miles Turner sitting there, 6,900. He is the third most owned dude from the Pacers. Andrew Nembhard is going to play around 30 minutes, but he is way less interesting than he was earlier when DeLon Wright wasn't a part of this slate. You know, you can get to McConnell, Toppin. There's weird stuff here for the Pacers. Like Jalen Smith is tricky. I like that he's 2% owned. That's what I'm looking for. He'll end up being exactly whatever I play. So like if he's 2% owned in projections, I have 8. He'll be 8 just to piss me off. And then not play. It'll still be Isaiah Jackson somehow. But is there anything else here from the Pacers? Because obviously this game, 20 points higher than 2 of the other games, 30 points higher than Brooklyn, Memphis. We should have our eye on it.
Jalen Smith is the type of play where if I didn't know anything about the NBA and I was just playing NBA DFS, I would lock him in because the tools love him so much.
Yeah.
Can't do that though, because I think it comes with so much volatility, as we know. Played last game, even though he's been questionable with a back injury. Didn't play a ton. Would have to assume he'd be limited again tonight. Like, I don't think I'm not going to play Jalen Smith because I'm playing minimum lineups. He is a good guy to get over the field on if you're playing, that $4 or whatever, because he's
Yeah.
certainly got upside, and that's all you care about. So I'm with that.
Yeah, you
I
get
don't
him to
love.
18 or 19 minutes today, being able to put him in at power forward. Like, it
Uh-huh.
doesn't take much for his per minute rates to just work on a 4-game slate with 100,000 people in the contest. This were a
Yeah,
10 gamer, like we don't even talk about him.
100%, especially because of who he is. He's a guy that in limited minutes can really have like an Andre Drummond like effect. So I'm with that. Indiana, for the rest of them, they kind of look like a more expensive Toronto to me. I like
Yeah,
them all because they're in a good spot against Toronto, but I like other guys more, specifically Miami and the Sacramento guys. So that's just how I'm seeing the slate.
I think we're on the
Kind of
same
off
page.
this, kind of off this first game. I think this first game will obviously get a lot of ownership. So will Miami, but I'm more into the late game personally.
178% aggregate ownership going to this first game. That is the second highest total of any of the games. Obviously, Miami, Sacramento is just blowing everything else out of the water. But this is also the game that I am the lightest on. So fading the 245 point total track meet at 7 o'clock. I am going to be so far at the bottom of the live standings about 7:30 for all the people like the game stackers and stuff that are just running to the top for Indy Toronto out of the gate. It's going to be currently winning $0 basically until 10 o'clock.
Yeah, listen, but then like once you get into the cash and it's like all your guys are playing,
Oh, every
that's
minute
you're every second you're just zooming up. That's like a great feeling.
Yeah, I hope I am at least. Because if not, it's going to be a real bad feeling.
Basketball is one of those sports though where it's like, and I don't know of any other sports like this where points are guaranteed on every possession. So teams can suck, even like that Portland game last night, but there are still fantasy points being accumulated every second, every minute, if you will. So like, even if the Toronto Atlanta game is the worst game in NBA history, you're still going to be at the bottom, because they'll have some points. I don't know. Checking DK standings like during the contest is just too tilting for me now.
I feel very similar to you. Anything else for the Pacers?
No.
All right. To the 1,300 of you that are watching in YouTube, thank you for being here. You could also watch on playback. We're going to be on playback at 7 p.m. after Live Before Lock. So as long as you hit the like button here, you'll get access to Live Before Lock at 6 o'clock. Live Before Lock will take you all the way up until 7. And then we are exclusively live on playback. You'll see the links in chat for playback. Come join us. I'm hopping on for the first 15 minutes. I'm going to hit you guys with a prize picks card, but we're going to have like 3 or 4 other people hopping on throughout that hour, hanging out with Greg. I'm fighting a sneeze right now, so I'm really hoping that I could work it out. It's coming. It's coming. It didn't happen. I edged it, and it just got stuck in the old beak here. It's a big beak too, so sometimes they get lost up there. Anyway, hang out at playback with us. We're talking ownership for games coming up. We're live watching basketball games. We all get the same experience. We all get to watch games on League Pass together if you have League Pass. If you don't, you can sign up for League Pass. We might even be able to hook you up with a VIP spot in our playback channel for the night so you can watch along with us. And it's not us synced up on different things. We're all watching the exact same stream at the exact same time. We're going to give out picks, bets. We're going to do some live betting if we can. And we're doing this Monday through Friday at a minimum. So make sure you're hanging out with us, everybody. I don't sneeze like a fairy, a quiet little chew. No, they're big and powerful. You look at that. Look at that right there. This is not the kind of nose that sneezes light, folks. This thing brings the hammer. It's a lot. It's a lot. Anyway, Detroit. The Pistons are 11.5-point dogs in New York, 223 total. Tough spot for Detroit. They are atrocious as a basketball team across the board. Now they have to face a quality defense and the slowest team in the league. 12% ownership coming into Cade, into Jalen Duren, and to Quentin Grimes. Single digits across the board for the rest of these guys. Only Duren and Cade crossed the 10% mark for optimal rates. Do you like anything for the Pistons?
Like is a relative term. No, I wrote up Asar Thompson as a contrarian mid-tier play today. He still fits that bill. Certainly not excited about it. Quentin Grimes, I mean, I don't really like it, but I could see myself playing him just because shooting guard eligible, 3,600. I hate it, but it's just a
Revenge
small
narrative.
slate. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
It's actually a revenge narrative that I semi believe in for today because I do think that he likes to shoot
Okay.
a little bit more than he was ever allowed to do for the Knicks. I assume he's salty that he's in Detroit and not New York and would like to stick it to them. So I think he's going to
Okay.
look for himself for a bit.
I'll counter that with, yeah, that might be true, but is there any chance Tibbs is like, we're not letting fucking Quentin Grimes beat us here?
Come out in a box and one or something on it, just to be
Yeah.
dicks about it. Certainly possible. Certainly. I assume Evan Fournier has the same sort of vibe. Like he's going to want to get out there and let it sail.
No, I agree. Like, and again, in the NBA, like volume matters big time. So like, if he's looking for his shot, but like, I'm not playing them because of that, but they were both already in play, and it doesn't take a feather out of their cap, if you will.
No. I have a bunch of Grimes. He's the only thing that I'm really getting to from Detroit. I don't really have Duran. I don't really have Cade. I got a little bit of Fontecchio. I had so much Fontecchio. Was that Friday night that he went crazy? I think it was Friday night. That sounds right
There
to
was
me.
one
It doesn't
night where he
matter.
was the same price as Matherin and did not go crazy, but
I think it was
that was like,
whatever the most recent game was. I
okay.
ended up having like 35% of him at relatively low ownership. It just I wasn't able to squeeze anything out that I really needed, but I had one of the linchpins. Kind of
Oh, that
sucked.
was the Boncaro game winner.
Yeah, it was. It was. But like he's the second most owned guy I have for Detroit at 7%. But this game environment is horrific. I have them losing 4 possessions below their average. They're already a bad offense. They're facing a good defense. This is a really tricky spot for Detroit. 105.7 implied total is the lowest on today's slate. It's just gross.
I think that my only case for Detroit, when you get these real small NBA slates, you can hypothetically play them more like a baseball slate, just because like getting different becomes it's just so much easier to reach the mountaintop if some weird stuff happens in the game that's
Yeah.
projected for all the ownership or the games. That
Yeah, this game
said,
goes
like,
to double OT or something like that, and all of a sudden you wanted everything from the Pistons.
right. And again, like I'm not playing because of that, but Detroit will be low owned. Like they're actual good players. Although Cade's 13% owned, like I can't see playing 8K Cade here over a guy like Fox, but a lot of the field's going to feel that way. So like that's the merit to playing Cade.
Yeah, I would happily take some Cade, but we just had, the same sort of conversation where, we're both on De'Aaron Fox in a relatively comparable price point. We got a lot of just straight up point guard options today. You cannot play them all. You inevitably have to talk about how you're not playing somebody. Cade
Right.
happens to be that guy for me right now, but that top section of point guard is just, and then knowing that you're probably already locking down one of those spots with DeLon Wright, you just run out of real estate, whether that's Brunson, Halliburton, Scotty Barnes, obviously has forward eligibility too, but Fox, Cunningham, quickly. Like I'm already down into the 6Ks, but it's not like you can't play Cam Thomas on a day like today at 6,800. Like, is it fun? No, but another point guard option. Schroeder is out there for you. And then you've got, 90% of DeLon Wright. One of these point guards that we talk about, you just have to draw a line through, and probably two of them. Just happens to be where we're at.
Yeah, we talked at the beginning, like even just the three we talked about, not even counting anyone else, Brunson, Halliburton, Fox. Those three guys look like three of the top 6, 7 plays on the slate. And
Yeah.
DeLon Wright's the best play on the slate. So I do think any of the other guys, and I'm going to include Cade quickly in that group. Cade and Quickly look real similar to me, where they'll be like owned on the peripherals, like 10 to 15%. They're not unowned, but they could have big games at their price point, and they're not going to get a ton of love. So I'm not going to play them here, but I see the merit just in getting off the field a little bit on a slate this size.
All right. On the opposite side for the Knicks, we've got 30% ownership coming into Josh Hart, 25 to Jalen Brunson, who I have already let you guys know I have more than double that. Around 10 for Precious Achiuwa and Dante DiVincenzo. Not really getting any love to Boyan, to Burks. The Isaiah Hartenstein at this point is still a giant question mark to us. So it really is kind of just like there are four guys you can get to from the Knicks, and that's it. Like, if you want to roll the dice on Hartenstein, he's the only other option that I think you could have, but I can't see getting to Burks, Bogdanovich, Jericho Sims, or Miles McBride today.
I'm with you. I see it as the four main guys. I'm chuckling. Andy Francis in playback said the classic Fred Durst fitted backwards hat versus the snapback backwards hat, a long-standing rivalry.
You do have a very good Durst vibe going right now.
I do. I love wearing a snapback backwards, but my hairline is receding so bad now that it just,
like keep it covered.
Yeah. So the backwards fitted is just now the route I go.
God hasn't blessed me with much, but a good head of hair is what I got. I would have took it in other ways, obviously. He gave me brain. Everything from the neck up was perfect. Face, hair, brains. I'm great. Waist down, a little bit of a trickier subject, unfortunately.
As far as the Knicks go, they look really good. The guys you mentioned, and then it falls off a cliff basically after that. The other guys are just GPP fillers at best, but the main four guys actively look good here. Precious coming in with a ton of leverage. Like to see that. Their prices, I don't know if they've come down, but at least they've stabilized. Brunson certainly hasn't come down, but the others have stabilized a little bit. So Brunson and Hart look the best. Then Precious and DiVincenzo, but I'm fine playing any and all of them.
Yeah, so I obviously have a ton of Brunson. I don't really have much else to add here. He's got a 30+ points prop. He gets to face the Pistons. Like, I just think he's in an incredible spot. Josh Hart, I mean, I'm very happy. He's the guy I have second most right now. We have some negative leverage on him, but he has the highest optimal rate of anybody on the Knicks. I'm getting to around 20%. It's just so many minutes. He's just not leaving the floor, and I don't really see that changing. I'm dead neutral to Dante DiVincenzo. I have a little bit of Precious Achiuwa, but nothing crazy. This really is just the Jalen Brunson show, and that I feel pretty good about. If I'm going to get to one individual dude from the Knicks, I'm very happy that it's Jalen Brunson right now.
Yeah, he's not pulling like a ton of ownership either. Projected to be 25% owned. I dig it.
And I didn't get to any shares of Hartenstein. I thought I might, just from like a leverage perspective, because I think there's something that, like, one of these days he's just going to play 30 minutes and we didn't know it was going to happen. I don't know if that's today. It doesn't seem like that kind of spot for him to just get force fed out there, but that price is going to come down, I would imagine. And then you're going to get those minutes at like 5,700 and you're going to really wish you had them. But I don't think today is the day to pull that trigger.
Yeah, I'd rather play Podol over him, but yeah. I agree with all your points.
All right, I have nothing else for the Knicks here.
Same. Knicks are surprisingly weirdly easy to talk about right now.
They really are. All right, guys, I touched on playback a little bit ago, but you should be watching us there. Jordan will probably drop that link into chat again, but I'm going to circle back to the thing that I normally tell you guys about, and that is signing up for our avatar, which costs you $0. Just go to stokastic.com/avatar, grab our logo, use it on DraftKings, FanDuel, Owners Box, Yahoo. You should be used to seeing it at the top of contests lately because it's up there all the time. You have to be inundated with Stokastic logos. If you do that and you finish in the top 3 of a contest with 5,000 or more entries, you get 1 month of whichever package you're looking for at Stokastic, except for the all access every sport package. That one's a little bit too lofty. But if you want the NBA package, that's a $200 value. You get projections, ownership, you get our Sims tool, the contest generator, lineup generator, our premium Discord. Maybe you want a different sport. That would be fine too. The only thing you have to do is tweet that result at Stokastic HOF. Show us the lineup, show us the contest you were in. We want to promote it to the world, and all you have to do is just put out one single tweet. Pretty easy to do. That will unlock your ability to get that 1 month free. And it costs you nothing. You don't have to have a sub with us to grab our avatar. You just have to go to stokastic.com/avatar and load it to your profile at whichever site you're playing. Very easy. Very easy. A game I wish didn't exist. The Brooklyn Nets, 2-point favorites in Memphis, 215 total. We have 10 to 15% ownership coming into Dennis Schroeder, the regular, mildly interesting guy, Mikal Bridges, and Nick Claxton. Single digits across the board for everybody else. Those three guys that I mentioned are also the only guys that got north of 8% optimal. I assume we're on the same page and think Mikal Bridges is probably the guy that I would want to get to from the Nets. What do you like here?
Nothing. I hate this game. I hate these teams.
Yep.
But then I look at this slate, and even more than Detroit, I'm like, this could be the night a Nets Grizzlies game stack takes it down. I'm not playing that. It's the grossest thing ever. But these teams are both so bad that, like, you just never know what happens when two shit teams, if you will, play. Like last night, we saw that Portland and Charlotte, they couldn't score.
3 of 32 from 3 last night.
But a lot of times when bad teams play, there's just no defense. So, again, these teams are bad offensively. That really hurts their cause. Mikal Bridges would be my favorite player, but man, like, he's so uninspiring that's just like a price play that, yeah, he should probably be a little more expensive, but at some point you are what you are. And like, he is what he is right now. I'm not saying he can't get better and he won't be better next year, but like, I think this is who the Nets are right now. And it's hard to pick out on any given day, like the one guy, because usually no one gets there.
The only guy that I have north of double digits is Bridges. I have 13%. Shooting guard, small forward, 7,200. It's the same thing he always is. He's very live to go for north of 40 fantasy points and be a good option here. I think the spot is really good for him. I feel like this is the kind of spot where he will thrive against a shittier team, but not be able to be like the best guy against a real defense, which is interesting. Cam Thomas is certainly going to look for his against the Grizzlies. That's for sure. I like the idea of getting to more Brooklyn. It just isn't happening. This 215 total is really just nerfing the ability to get to anything because these guys are all priced as they should be. Now, what do you think here if we end up with no Ben Simmons?
Sorry, I had to burp, so I had myself.
You're good. I know how it feels when something's going to happen in your body and you need to stop it on a stream.
I don't know. Like, I just don't think in the context of the slate, it does all that much for me. That said, a guy like Dennis Schroeder becomes what is now a fine, solid play, probably becomes a good play.
Yeah.
But man, and I'm with you on Mikal Bridges. Like, I'm not going to be a victim of just game log watching and say, oh, because he hasn't done it in a couple weeks, he can't do it. Because that's obviously not the case. And those are the times to buy low on players like that. So I'm with that. Probably needed to hear that. I don't know. Simmons being out doesn't really, I don't think, move the needle for me. That said, if the tools tell me otherwise, I'll follow the tools.
Oops, didn't mean to filter that the way that I just did. I lost all of the data on my screen. Yeah, like if Simmons is out, you certainly feel better about Dennis Schroeder. Like he's probably going to get at minimum the same minutes he was going to get, and if not, a couple extra, and then have the ball a little bit more. In theory, that could be DSJ. Like they're going to have to, like someone stepping into the starting lineup. I assume it's Dennis Schroeder, but it doesn't have to be, but I assume that it is. I think Cam Johnson probably gets a couple extra minutes and goes from like a guy no one's going to play to a little bit more interesting. And then like maybe it's Lonnie Walker, but I doubt it just as a guy that is going to shoot. But I think it's all incremental. It would have to be like DSJ starting or something where you go from a guy that you're not projecting at all to a guy that, and he's already 4,300. So that's not even going to be all that crazy, but you need somebody to take a giant step up in minutes. And I don't know if that happens because we're only really replacing 22 minutes.
Yeah, again, I think for me, it's Schroeder already looks fine. If Simmons is out, he looks good. Not amazing, but good.
Anything else on Brooklyn?
No, I hate this team and game and everything about it.
Now we get to Memphis. Now we have one guy standing out above the rest. That is Jaren Jackson Jr., who is 7,900, power forward center, and 30% owned. He is in 47% of my lineups right now. Again, if I'm going to get to one dude from the Memphis Grizzlies, I'm pretty happy it's the most talented one. That's for sure. Then we have 10% owned, 10 to 15 coming into GG Jackson, Aldama, Kennard, Vince Williams, Zaire Williams. What are your thoughts on Jaren Jackson? Let's start there.
Not as high as you, but that's no surprise because we have this conversation a lot. You play
Yes,
a
we
lot
do.
of Jaren Jackson on these
I do.
slates. You have been. He's just not my guy. I don't really want to spend up with the Memphis guys, knowing he's got high upside at 7,900, especially in a spot like this. Like,
yeah.
What's the line on this game? Memphis, it's in Memphis, right? Memphis a slight favorite.
Brooklyn -2.
Okay, so basically a pick'em game.
Yeah.
Memphis is considerable dogs in most of their games. So probably a better game script for Jackson than he's used to. Man, I kind of like Memphis in that spot. Brooklyn shouldn't be a road dog over anyone right now. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously the best guy for Memphis. Like,
yeah,
if you're going to prioritize someone from Memphis, it's him. Just not really, for me, don't want to allocate the salary, his, 7,900 salary, even though I know it's a fine price point.
I think the reason that I'm getting so much of him is just simply the fact that we know what we're already doing with these guard plays. To get somebody at power forward, it's just like, well, I feel like we haven't talked about a single power forward on any of these teams. So I think that's why I'm just getting to him immediately, because there's just everybody else just seems to be a guard today.
Yeah, no, I'm with that. I guess the two guys I'm thinking of as power forwards are Hart and Jaquez, but you're right. Certainly haven't talked about any premier power forwards. He does look like, if one of these guys drops 50, it's probably him.
Hope he does. I don't even need 50. You give me 45 and I'll call it a dub for today. What about the rest of these dudes though? Jackson, Kennard, Aldama, Williams. I kind of like just casting a pretty wide net across them because I don't really have a great feel for who's going to play minutes outside of Vince Williams.
Same. Jake LaRavia got in the mix, and I just you can't trust the other Memphis guys. Vince Williams is already up to close to 7K. Yeah, nothing on Memphis. I mean, it's Jaren Jackson and then a huge drop off.
Most I got of anybody is 17% of GG Jackson. We have him 13% optimal, 13% owned. So not all that different than what we're projecting. We do have a little bit of positive leverage on Vince Williams. I'm right around the field for him. I did take his under on Prize Picks this morning, so I will be cheering against him unless that lineup happens to be at the top. I'll happily give up a Prize Picks card for 100K, but I would just prefer him to not go over and also win. That would be the better output for me. And then Zaire Williams, I have 13% of, which I think is pretty interesting because I greatly reduced his projection when I redid all of my stuff around 330. His usage rate when sharing the floor with a lot of the guys that are active and basically not the guys that aren't active has been oddly low. And I didn't want to penalize him too much, but I did take a bit of a chunk out of it. That did bring his projection down quite a bit. Unfortunately for me, he's still in 13% of lineup. So I think it's just a price point and position that I can't get away from.
I hate that ownership. Like,
Same.
I get it.
Yeah, I'm under the field, so I'm with you.
The shooting guard eligibility, he's got great positionality today. Just because shooting guard isn't great, we've talked about that. Small forward's just fine. And I like the Miami guys more, but he's cheaper than them. So I hate it, but I guess I get why he's getting the ownership. Just probably not a guy I'll play.
Avi just hit us with the super chat. He said, Goodwin getting minutes at point guard. Yeah, but not enough. He's 4,900. As long as they keep the same starting lineup that they've had previously, he's not in it. I went 16 minutes. We have 17 on the site. I don't really see him as playable today.
You can't play him on this slate.
He'd have to be in the starting lineup.
Even then, it's so much of a reach with DeLon Wright and the other guards we've talked about.
Yeah, he's point guard only, which does not help here.
No, it doesn't. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if he's starting, you can take some shots, sure.
And then just to follow it up, Zach Justice said Stevens not a good cheap option. I got him in for 16 minutes. So do we. He's just not going to play enough.
If you're playing,
doesn't have to play at all.
If you're playing the $4, I'm not sure I'd take him out of the field. but I presume I'd only get like 1 to 5% anyways.
Yeah, we saw him like you need Jaren Jackson to be out for him to really unlock anything. That's when we saw him play 29 minutes. Without that, like with everybody that's in right now, he's just blocked by other people, especially now that Jake LaRavia is back. Not that Jake LaRavia plays the 5, but like that's just another guy that's ahead of him.
Yeah, you're right. He was actually a guy I was looking at as like not someone I want to play, but 3,400. Took 8 shots last game.
Yeah.
Played like 17 minutes. It wasn't even a blowout. Like they are sorely lacking offensive options. And he's one of these guys that they drafted who is, good offensively. So
yeah,
no confidence in it, but I think I'd play him over Stevens based on everything you just said.
I would too. Just a small forward eligibility is really helpful in that situation too. But like, again, he's a flyer.
Big flyer, but also, and I'm sure you can agree with this, like they actually have, like they've allocated resources and draft capital for LaRavia, first round pick draft capital. Yeah. Lamar Stevens was like a flyer. Not saying that like they're intertwined and that they both can't play, but like I would have to assume that LaRavia is higher in the pecking order.
I would think so too. Anything else here for Memphis?
No, this game is awful.
You know, it's not awful, everybody. Lineup Generator All Access. People were asking for it for a while. Now we have it. If you want to get access to every single lineup generator we have across all of the sports, this is what you're looking for. $80 a month. That covers you for the baseball lineup generator when it's around, basketball right now. What else am I missing? There's 100 more that I can't think of off the top of my head. I don't know why my brain is freezing on lineup generator. All the sports that we have basically that are relevant DFS sports. Jordan's pulling it up on the screen. PGA as well. Whew. I was just missing it, man. It wasn't in my head. NFL when it's around too. This is the ultimate tool for me for people that are like not able to get to the Sims each month, but want to make better lineups. Because I think you're immediately just starting off in a much better place. We handle all of the lineup generation for you. And then we get rid of all the lineups that we don't think grade out well. We present the rest to you. If you like it, you click save. If you don't, click discard. You can lock players and swap players, export up to 20 of these lineups via CSV. You can see optimal rates and ownership rates, get an idea of where your lineup ranks on a scale of chalky to very contrarian. And it's all in front of you. You don't like one of the plays, you just click a button, swap somebody out. You can save that right to the CSV if you want to. But when you hit discard, it just pops right back up on your screen with another lineup. Very mobile friendly as well. If you're somebody that likes to do a lot of your stuff on the phone, the lineup generator is going to be what you're looking for there. So if Sim seems a little daunting, this is the way to start. You can get all access lineup generator for $79.95. Final game. The one we need to talk about. Miami Heat, 7.5-point dogs in Sacramento. Slightly different game than what we talked about earlier today on the strategy show and in my other videos. For Miami, Thomas Bryant, suspended. Jimmy Butler, suspended. Tyler Hero, out. Nikola Jovic, suspended. Josh Richardson, out. Duncan Robinson, out. Sorry, Duncan Robinson available. Orlando Robinson, questionable. Terry Rozier out. Drew Smith out. Too many names, guys. Too many names. So the overwhelming expectation in the industry is that DeLon Wright will be the starter at point guard for the Miami Heat. He is flat 3K, has not made his Miami Heat debut yet. We have him projected for around 90% ownership. Anything you want to say 80 plus is going to be on the table here for Wright, assuming he's named the starter. I don't know what else to say here. He is so far different than everybody else today. I don't know how you get away from something like this. It takes so little, especially once that ownership gets high. It takes so little out of DeLon Wright to just be a guy that you're getting to because he's going to be in 80,000 of the lineups.
I can't imagine they brought DeLon Wright in to not at least let him play in spots like this, right? Like no Hero, no Rozier, no Butler. It's DeLon Wright season. I don't know if I've ever talked about the bust percentage on this show because like that doesn't really matter when we talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen it this low. 3% bust percentage. So that just adds some context. His floor is 20. Like
it's basically just injury.
It really is. Like, this is one where, like, if this were MLB DFS, the case would be like anything can happen in MLB, but it's not. You just play him and move on.
I have 100%. I will have 100% the entire time. The only way that I won't is if he gets not ruled, like if he's not the starter and we get that information at 6:30, which I do not anticipate happening. You just have to play the shit out of him. There's no other way around it. The real question becomes, what do you want to do with the rest of this team? Because I find it interesting. We've got 38% ownership coming into Bam. I'm not going to tell anybody to not play Bam in this spot. They have so many less real NBA players. He's 31% optimal. Now I'm a little lighter on Bam, but by all means, get there. 25% ownership to Duncan Robinson, 25% ownership to Jaime Jaquez, 22 to Kevin Love. What else stands out to you?
I like everything else.
Okay.
Probably a little lower on Love, just because of the positionality, and I like Bam so much. I think you can easily play both of them together. But Love is probably the odd man out for me. Love and Caleb Martin, two guys I'm not sure I'll get to. But Bam, we talked about DeLon Wright. Duncan Robinson and Jaquez look like three, not including DeLon Wright, the best plays on the slate in my mind. Like, they're priced a little bit more expensive than like maybe what you'd think they should be, but they're not expensive enough for the situation they're in tonight. I could see this team dying. No Butler, no Hero, no Rozier, but they catch Sacramento on the second half of a back-to-back. I like this whole game in general. I really like those four guys from Miami. DeLon Wright, Bam, Jaquez, Robinson.
I obviously have Wright in everything. I have 21% of Bam, so I'm light, but I have 45% of both Duncan Robinson and Jaime Jaquez right now, assuming those two guys are starting, which they should be in this case. I have 0 Kevin Love. 4,300 center only. To me, one of the easier, like, I don't love it because it doesn't take much for Kevin Love to get there and they need some bodies, but I'm happy to dodge 22% ownership if that's legitimate. And there's one big piece for it. Not that I think the minutes are relatively comparable for him and James Wiseman. James Wiseman's 3,300 and unowned right now. All this takes is Jalen Duren being in any sort of foul trouble at all, or just simply James Wiseman playing really well in his 15-minute stretch as the direct backup to Duren. One of these guys is unowned. The other is 20% owned. I don't see the gap between their experiences tonight that big.
I'm with that just because of the ownership. Like, I think Love is obviously the better projected play. Like,
100%.
Like, I get your points though. Here's a question to you, just because I'm seeing on the playback chat people talking about fading DeLon Wright. If you were playing one lineup in the $4, knowing how owned he's going to be, like, I would have to presume that for most people playing a $4 tournament, like they can easily find those funds. So they're not like stretching their bankroll to do that.
Yeah.
Would you play DeLon Wright or would you not?
I would, because he's not the same thing as like a high dollar dude. This is, here's the best way to say it. Even if you fade DeLon Wright, it doesn't mean you have the keys to the castle. Right. You still have to get the other 8 spots in your lineup correct to get to that point. You're just removing one of the spots that's the easiest to predict for the day. Like, he's honestly, if he scores 15 fantasy points, I still expect him to be in the winning lineup of the contest just because he's going to be, let's just say he's 80% owned. Even if you don't play him, you still have to beat out 20,000 other entries of people that didn't play DeLon Wright. Like, that's still an incredibly difficult GPP to win at that point. His right answer is just so much better than everybody else's that I find it, this is not a situation where I think it's like super duper viable. What's the alternative at that point if you're doing it? Like, you just have to hit the nuts still instead of taking the guy that is like 80% likely to hit his target score today.
Yeah, I agree with you. In any other DFS sport, I think the conversation could be had. NBA DFS is just different. So
yeah, like
I'd much rather
chat just said, go ahead.
I'd much rather play Wright and then find like a sub 1% owned guy on this particular slate, even though most guys 1% owned are not good plays. That's how good of a play I think Wright is. Go ahead. Sorry.
Nate in chat said 3,000 salary, 20 points won't win the $4. He will unequivocally be in the winning lineup if he scores 20 fantasy points.
Yeah. Then the other problem with this is because it's a smaller slate. Like, let's say you played that Brunson, Halliburton, Fox lineup, right?
Yeah.
Like, where are you getting value from? There isn't just guys priced like DeLon Wright that are going to score like him. And all of a sudden, if he scores 30, like no one's going to even come close to him. And that's very viable here. I think it's much more viable, presuming he starts, that he scores over 30 than under 15. Like, he's a good fantasy producer. He's not elite, but he's good with steals. Like, he does a lot of stuff. So I'm with you. We see it's not high.
And it's way less about how many points DeLon Wright gets and how owned he is. There's going to be 80,000 versions of him getting 20 points in that scenario. And then you only need to find one person to get 7 of them right instead of 8 of them right. It's just like the permutations just come down so much the moment he locks that in.
I think that kind of what you guys are getting to ultimately is like, what's his optimal percentage? And we have that. It's close to 70%. So yeah. 30% of the time, like, he's not going to be optimal because Cade, Brunson, and Halliburton all go for 60. But like 70% of the time, he's optimal.
And not only that, like, it's a little different on a 4-game slate where these kind of numbers become closer. You don't have to build the optimal lineup to win this contest. Now, 100,000 entries, 4-game slate. You're closer to that than you normally would be.
Depending, I think it depends on who's like, even on a slate like tonight, if some random just like plays a lot, like no one's going to have
James Wiseman would be a perfect example here. Same salary tier, basically. Like, he goes out and scores 28 because Duran rolls his ankle.
Right. Then I don't know if anyone will have the optimal in that case.
Yeah. There's something there. And that's sort of the easier, like, this is where boom rating that we have comes into play a little bit more. Where at this point, DeLon Wright is 52% to go 5x plus 10 or something in that neighborhood for it. But if he's 68% to be optimal, he's like 80 something to be in the winning lineup because you don't need to get all the way to that tippy top.
That is, you bring up something really interesting. And again, I'm just kind of thinking about this out loud. On almost any NBA slate in any contest, you would just say, no one's going to ever have the optimal. You don't need the optimal lineup.
Yeah.
On a 4-game slate with 100,000 entries with 100K to first, like, that gap has been narrowed significantly.
Yeah. And if you want to really see the right answers here, go check out everybody's exposures to DeLon Wright from like the real money players that have him tonight. It'll explain everything.
Amen.
Want to close it out with Sacramento?
Sure.
This is the team I have the most of, by the way, but I only have 4 of these guys in real exposure. We have 25% ownership to Fox, 25 to Sabonis, 25 to Keegan Murray, 25 to Malik Monk. They're all basically the same. They're all 20 to 25-ish optimal rates as well. I love this team. I have a ton of Fox. I have a ton of Sabonis. And as of right now, it appears I'm treating Keegan Murray pretty much like DeLon Wright.
I'm getting to him too, and I don't like it. He hasn't been particularly good. He was one of the top contrarian plays yesterday. He is again today. Even pulling 25% ownership, he has a 30% optimal rate. So it's just the price point of positionality. He plays a ton of minutes. I like this game environment. If I'm playing, again, I'm playing minimal lineups. If I'm playing one lineup, like, there's a easy chance I could play Fox, Sabonis, and Murray. I like this game a lot. It's not hard to get to. I mean, this game is where I'm going to have a lot of high exposure. It just is what it is.
I have 434% of my exposure is this game. So more than half of everything that I have comes from the 10 o'clock game.
And again, it's not like we're sneaking up on anyone here.
No.
But there's something to be said in having more of this than the other games / game, specifically the Toronto game, that's getting similar ownership. I'd rather be over the field on this game where the field seems to be kind of split on it.
What do you think of Malik Monk? Because we have him 21% optimal, 26% owned. A little bit of negative leverage, but still, he's one of the 4 guys that are getting heavy ownership. Because we're not talking about Harrison Barnes or Kevin Huerter, who are still sitting here playing, 26 plus minutes every night.
I love Malik Monk, like just in general. He's one of my favorite hoopers. I love watching him hoop. Yeah. I never get him right from a DFS perspective, but like putting biases aside, he's someone I love on a slate like this. Like you've talked about it ad nauseum now. Like you're going to need outliers, especially we're playing DeLon Wright. We're playing other popular players. Like Malik Monk is a guy that can, in the right game script, get you 50 here and like be an absolute must needed play. He's the odd man out for me. I like him probably more than Keegan Murray, but the power forward eligibility and the cheaper price tag is what does it for me.
Jalen Smith available to play today. That is official. So yeah, I'm getting a lot of those four guys, but Murray, Fox, Sabonis, it's everything for me. There's something about the way that I have Keegan Murray projected. I mean, I'm only a point ahead of us, but something is driving me to only get him at power forward today. He's just in everything that's showing up for me. So I have a pretty big bet on Keegan Murray.
I want to say one more thing about DeLon Wright, because I know a lot of people don't follow the NBA. Someone said, won't be the first time a 3K bum ruins your team. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say DeLon Wright is like an elite NBA player, but he is far from a bum, especially from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, we're not talking about some no-namer here.
No, like he's been productive when given minutes and plenty of times in the past.
I think he's going to end up continuing to get bench minutes for the Heat.
Same. Like
I think they need. I think they're going to love his defense.
I think about a guy like Ish Smith, and I feel like people have the misconception that like, oh, DeLon, like no, not even
night and day better.
Not even a little bit.
This is going to be a fun one, folks. Live Before Lock is coming up next. Hit that like button if you want to watch it. And then we're going to playback from 7 o'clock on. You could watch on playback right now. Jordan's sharing our tools on playback. You'll still hear us. You'll still see us. But if you want to see it on playback, that's where you want to be. Live Before Lock coming up next. Good luck.
We're back, baby. Inducting you fine friends into the Stokastic Hall of Fame and giving away a lot of free month subscriptions. Any package of your choosing up to $200. And all you got to do to get involved, get inducted, get your free month, get your free Sims package, is download the Stokastic avatar at stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet us your wins at Stokastic HOF when you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Doesn't matter if it's a 5-cent entry or 500 and you are in. We kick this week off with Dave Oliver, Elway's Army, back again. Thanks for the great analysis. Sims just simply the best. $3,500 win in the NBA Showdown. And then the Professor. The Sims tool is legit. Yes, sir. $4,000 for the Professor. And Jorge's back. He was just in here for the NFL. Now, finally made it into the NBA Hall of Fame. Stokastic Sims took down the 20 max. I'll take second place. Thanks to the crew and the valuable information during the shows. Congrats, Jorge. And our own CEO, Tom Kennedy. Double or nothing on the Chiefs. And yeah, the lineups were built and swapped with the Stokastic Sims tool. What's that, a $51,000 win, a $5,000? Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty nice night for Tom, as well as John Good. Another great night last night with the Sims tool. 9th in the big tourney as well. You guys rock. $1,000. First place in the 10K mini max. And Jay Lutzy back again. Good night sweat. All thanks to your help from ownership projections for a single game 15 minutes before. $2,500 for Jay Lutzy. And South Jersey beer scene. Hey, Stokastic, you might be on to something with the Sims thing. 3rd week in and stat correction away from a takedown. Thanks to the team, especially all of those fellas. And for the hours of content, cheers. Nice win for South Jersey beer scene. Ron Koth took 3rd in the 12K Friday NBA pick and roll with only 8 entries. Thanks to Stokastic and Josh Engleman for all the good info. Tyler Shaughnessy woke up this morning feeling like a champ. Big ups to the crew. The $1,900 win for Tyler as well. A little NFL action to close out the season in the Super Bowl. And PJ Allen decided to start doing the 50-cent mini-max after living in the jukebox and dime world forever. First contest was Saturday, took 16th. This is Sunday and Mondays. Thanks to everyone at Stokastic, especially the guys on Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock. You guys are awesome. Second place, $250 for PJ Allen. And Stormamu landed second place in the FanDuel pick and roll thanks to the team and their help. Can't wait to try the Sims. You got it, brother. You got it. You're in. The Lulis card, Stokastic has the best tools in the game. Showdown takedown, $250 first place in Showdown. And Freddie P. If the sorry Bucks could have kept this game a little closer, good night overall. We'll take it. $750 second place for Freddie. And Brian Miller, shout out to the process. Josh getting some love on this one. Deeper Dive Live Before Lock crew for the insight. After a couple chopped large field first, a solo first, 3,000, and third in this $4,700 field single entry. Maybe I can finally get hooked up with a sub. We got you, brother. 4,700's close to 5,000. Close enough. And they took down another one. Big thanks to the Deeper Dive Live Before Lock crew, best in the game. Close it out with John. Hope this counts. Hey, if it's 5,000 or more, like I said, doesn't matter if it's the quarter jukebox or the fadeaway. You're in, brother. Shout out to everybody who's been inducted. And welcome back if you've been here before. Hit us up at support@stokastic.com. Get that free month, $200 value, whatever sports you want. And don't forget, rock that Stokastic avatar wherever it is you're playing.
Like your friend needs to learn how to make jackets better.
I like Eric's denim jacket too, but I mean that jacket Jordan's got very
just
cool.
A shirt.
What is happening, everybody? It looks like a denim jacket to me. But what do I know, guys? What is happening? We got Live Before Lock tonight. It's only 4 games. Eric and I are going to be breaking down the slate for the next hour, and then after that, as you guys know, we've got our show over on Playback right after this, and I have got a bunch of guests coming on for today. So I've got Josh coming on. Rich is going to come on, talk about the Heat and their rotation. We'll talk some late swap stuff maybe also. Ben's coming on to do his whatever random smart shit that he's betting on for the day. Probably like, women's high school lacrosse or something. He's always found weird edges that Ben has. We've also got Aton and Nathan coming on. We're going to build a parlay together. Laffy's going to talk some NBA. Andy Francis coming on to talk hockey and hockey bets. So looking forward to tonight in the post-lock show. We got all that going on. But first, tonight's slate to break down. So do me a favor, if you guys are watching on Stokastic, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching over on Playback, follow us over there. You could also follow us on the Playback channel as well. And Eric, what's happening? How was your weekend?
Weekend was good. I got to play a little golf. What else did I do this weekend? Had a show yesterday with EMAC, and EMAC goes out and wins the mini max. So that was enjoyable to see from my guy, Team Eric. That's for sure. Sims Tool treated him nicely, and I know he's getting ready for the big move to officially be down in Florida long term. So always feels nice to be able to contribute to the kids' college fund. Feels good. Otherwise, yeah, pretty chill. Just kind of business as usual for me. 4 games, kind of a weird Monday slate here for sure. Did some writing about that over at Stokastic. About an hour into writing, got all the Heat news dropped as I was writing about the Heat news. So that was really the first I've been like super burned writing an article so far this season. So overall been running pretty good, but how was your weekend? I saw you once again. You took down the $3 in UFC split with a bunch of your closest friends, but another good UFC week with the Sims.
Yeah. Fourth first place finish for me in the $3 already this year. So it's been a really good start to the year. And if you guys aren't checking out the MMA Sims product, it has been awesome this year. And then, we've got EMAC winning slates. We've got new packages here as well. The lineup generator package. If you guys haven't checked that out, we got a lineup generator bundle now. So if you guys are just looking for the lineup generator, maybe play multiple sports like basketball and PGA at the same time, go check that out. There's a link for that below. You get all of them bundled together. I'm kind of curious though, Eric. We were talking about this a little bit before the show started. I want to get some takes from people on this in the post-lock show as well. But what was your initial reaction to DraftKings on Friday? I'm sure as many of you know in the audience, but maybe not all of you, that Friday, DraftKings is going to experiment with a no late swap slate. So Friday, there's going to be no late swap, and it doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be something permanent or that it might only happen once. There's going to be some factors involved in it, like how much people like the slate, how many people play, whether it's going to continue or not. But for you yourself, Eric, you pro, against it, indifferent? What are your feelings?
Obviously, I talk about late swap all the time. I think it's something that's pretty fundamental to the way that we play it now. I understand that there's probably a lot of 150 players that don't necessarily want to be by the computer investing that much time, energy, money into slate after slate after slate. And some of them like the nature of being able to set it, forget it, the way that you can in other sports. Now, you're still reacting in other sports, whether it's NFL, you have actives and actives, you better be reacting, an hour and a half before slates lock there in the mornings. Then you also have MLB where guys get scratched and you have pitchers get scratched. You have batters get scratched. You have things that you have to react to, but basketball is inherently the one where you have to be late swapping the most at times because news just changes drastically what you're going to plan to do on any given slate. Yesterday, obviously talked about the Clippers situation. That ended up being awesome with Norman Powell, not somebody that I even anticipated rostering, didn't even know if he was going to play. And so there's stuff like that that'll show up. But what I do think is going to be a fun aspect of it is, Fridays, if it's like a day or two that you can carve out of the week and you can have like different slates, like it's like no swap Friday, whatever the hell that would be. Sounds like you and I hanging out in New Jersey, but I'm pretty positive that like if it's going to influx more people like interest in it, I'm for it. We'll see how it ends up panning out. I'm just curious that this is something that they're choosing to do at the beginning of March rather than, hey, beginning of the season, let's try out some different stuff and see where people land.
Yeah, I don't want to say indifferent to it because that's not the case, but I don't really have a strong take on whether it's going to be good or bad until I actually see it play out. So yeah, the way that things stand right now, I understand that there are people who are leaving the DFS ecosystem for numerous reasons, either to go and bet on sports or just because there are people who they are tired of sitting around all night waiting for late swap. So to me, if it's optimal for myself and my own bottom line for there to be late swap. It's a massive edge that I have at DFS, that you have at DFS. But at the same time, too, if late swap means that people are just going to leave DFS to the point where it, doesn't exist for NBA purposes, is considerably smaller in a few years, I don't want that to be the case either. So the way I feel about it is if eliminating late swap is going to allow more people to play and it's going to lead to bigger contests, I'm all for that. If it's going to mean that people don't really give a shit and the contests kind of stay the same, then I just prefer them to have late swap.
Perfectly said. Yeah, we're on the same page with it, where I want to be able to play the game in any iteration because I think I'll have an edge, whether that expected value comes down, exponentially. Like, obviously, it'll hurt your bottom line at the end of the season, not having a late swap over a long sample size relative to having it, because we're people who work in the industry. But, if that's not going to be the norm for a lot of people and they want to try out other things, I'm definitely all right with that as well.
All right, so let's start getting into the slate now. Just kind of wanted to, a little bit of DFS, kind of not necessarily drama, but just in pertinent news that I wanted to talk about at the top. But before we get into the super chats here, shout out to Chris Williams, gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. Jordan Klein in the world's coolest jacket, who I don't know if Jordan's willing to put himself on screen here, but goddamn, does he look sharp. Jordan,
I do like the jacket. I was being a dick.
It's very cool. Jordan, these super chats, how many of them were answered during the last show? Okay. So we got
we're going for
Adley's
one
question here. So then Jamie Moore asked this question, thoughts on the showdown for Miami-Sacramento? Yeah, interesting showdown slate that you're going to have for that one tonight, because that's where all of the best value is for tonight's slate, is that game between the Miami Heat and the Sacramento Kings. So a lot of the players that I'm getting a ton of exposure to for the main slate are going to be the same guys that you want to look at for showdown. And a lot of the value is going to be coming from the Miami Heat because there is no Jimmy Butler. That's going to be massively important for tonight's slate. So for sure, the best pay down. And by the way, also no Tyler Hero for the Miami Heat tonight. Very annoying. I don't know if you saw this, Eric. It opened up, the over-under for Tyler Hero's threes was 2.5, and it was broken towards the under. I was like, oh my God, this is like one of the better value bets I'd seen of the entire year. Yeah. And then unfortunately got ruled out. But
I tailed you on that this morning when I woke up. 6 a.m. or whatever it was my time. You posted it really, really early, and I was like, what is this line? So just move on with my life. But yeah, that would have been a nice freebie to get the day going.
Ridiculous. It was Tyler Hero for the season averages like 3.5 threes per game. His usage goes up with Jimmy Butler off the court. It's like, how is this line only 2.5? And then
I think they were assuming some kind of minutes limitation. That had to be what it was when I was looking into it. But the more I looked into it, I was like, even if you put him in for 28 minutes, he's going to project out really good at that line. So there was only upside at that number.
And so related to this, Jamie asked us the question, thoughts on the Miami-Sacramento showdown. So there's kind of unlimited value from that game. By far, the best value, in my opinion, to look at is going to be DeLon Wright. That is going to be for all formats. I assume he starts at point guard for the Heat. Is that also your assumption that Wright starts at point guard?
Yeah, it definitely is. So again, such a frustrating thing, but I was hoping this news was going to come out after these 3 games locked. The entire preface of my article was going to be why DeLon Wright needed to be in 100% of your lineups. And he was like projecting for 2% ownership. And I felt like a genius. And then all of a sudden, out immediately as I'm about to hit send on that thing. And glad that it happened that way because, I just rephrased pretty much everything that I had already written and got to do another run that was going to be more accurate and more helpful for people. But at the end of the day, if DeLon Wright starts, he is 3K. We've seen him play for a myriad of teams, if you will, in the NBA and the association, most notably playing backup to Trae Young. He is going to be a decent enough fantasy producer at 0.92 even on the season here with Washington in a pretty limited amount of minutes. Washington was just an inept franchise. DeLon Wright's brother also played for Miami, as I was digging into that, and was one of the guys that talked to Spoelstra and Pat Riley about acquiring DeLon Wright. Once he got bought out by the Wizards. So pretty much has everything going for him here. There's two true guards on the roster for tonight. So if it's not DeLon Wright, we'll also talk about Alondace Williams, because I think I am probably going to do a very stupid thing and you need to talk me out of it. But there's no doubt that 100% DeLon Wright is the way that I'm going to play this slate.
Yeah, so lots of DeLon Wright. And I mean, that's for, if you like him for classic slates, you're sure as hell going to like him for sure. Like, I can't imagine there's a time you'd have 100% of somebody in a classic slate wouldn't like them in showdown. So to Jamie's question here, yeah, load up on DeLon Wright for sure. As far as mid-range plays go, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Duncan Robinson, Caleb Barton, these guys all look good. And then because we're able to play like a min-price DeLon Wright, and then we're able to get other cheap guys like Caleb Martin and Jaime Jaquez Jr. into lineups, it is very easy to pay up for guys like Sabonis, Bam Adebayo, De'Aaron Fox in that captain spot there. So I think that's how you should go about approaching your showdown lineups tonight, Jamie. Next super chat here is from Anthony Maselli. Anthony's saying he's playing one lineup in the $4 DK, and he's putting it in for single entry as well. He wants to know who's our favorite play per position without DeLon Wright. So no DeLon Wright at any of our positions, and also our favorite contrarian play overall on this slate. And then he says, thank you. So let's go position by position here, Eric. And remember, we can't give out DeLon Wright as any of our most rostered players. So with that in mind, who do you have a point guard who is not Wright as your top choice to go to?
Alondace Williams.
All right. There's going to be a Tyrese Halliburton for me. I really like getting to Halliburton as a pay-up option. Shooting guard. What do you have at shooting guard?
Duncan Robinson.
Duncan Robinson for myself as well. Small forward. What do you have for us here?
Jaime Jaquez.
That is going to be Josh Hart for me. And then it's Duncan Robinson and then Jaime Jaquez Jr.
There you go.
This is, by the way, it would be Jaquez here is just like my overall favorite small forward. The problem I run into, though, is that if I am it's only a 4-game slate, I don't want to have lineups like 6 Miami Heat players.
I have a lot with 5, and I have no problem with it.
I'm capped at 4 here. I think you can make a case for 5, but I have kept it to 4.
I mean, I'm playing a 3K guy that nobody else is that's projecting for 0.1% ownership because I just think the range of outcomes are wider than what we think they are. We'll get into it. It's the most uncomfortable I've been, but of course this is on a day 2 with the $4. So I'm just maxing this thing. I'm playing a lot of Alondace Williams, and I think that's going to make me different than just about everybody today. I'm not saying completely different, but I think there is 24-minute upside for Alondas Williams today.
Yeah. Hey, they could go 24 minutes with Delon Wright and Alondas
what I'm getting
Williams.
at. And I just want 100% of that position.
Power forward for me, that is going to be Jaime Jaquez Jr.
Same.
And then at center, that is going to be able to go with 2 Heat players here, in my opinion, either Kevin Love, Bam Adebayo. I've got a little bit more of Love because of what his price point is, but there's so many Heat players to like on the slate. Sabonis, too, is easy to get to as a pay-up option. I mean, it's a slate where I just have so much exposure to the Heat. But who's your most rostered center, Eric?
Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, all these guys make sense. There's really 3 core plays for me at center tonight: Love, Adebayo, Sabonis, and then just other guys that are kind of mixed in there as well. As for the other part of Anthony Masili's question, you've kind of already tipped your hand. I have a feeling this could end up being your new call as well, though, Eric.
Yep.
Alondas Williams, your favorite contrarian play?
Yeah, I am going to look very, very smart or very, very stupid. And people are going to either say thank you or they are going to dunk on me on twitter.com. So there's really not going to be an in-between. I feel like I'm going to be very right or I'm going to be very wrong about it. But the reward of a 3K guy playing more than you think everybody else does in the entire industry, it would appear, is you win tournaments. So I'm going to try to do that. I get that it's 2 guys that might only put up 20 and 20, but like if I get 20 from both him and Williams, I would be just ecstatic and I would just be jamming top projected top plays at every other part of my lineup and be in a really good spot here. Am I going to have 40-50% of Alondas Williams? Probably not, but in my last run I had mid 30s and I think that's probably going to be where I end up landing with all things considered. I think the one thing I'm terrified of is that you get Alondas Williams starting and then Delon Wright, who hasn't played more than 14 minutes in over a month. Not that he can't. I mean, the Wizards just basically moved him out of the rotation as they were trying to figure out something with his contract. But I am of the mind that you are going to get close to 48 minutes between the 2 of them. And if that's going to be the case, I just really like playing both of them together in a ton of lineups.
I'll let you decide. What has to be considered contrarian? Like, is like 10%? Would that be considered contrarian?
Yeah, that's contrarian. I mean, my guy is 0.2% owned, so that's fun. Again, gonna look like an absolute dunce cap. 0.1% he is right now. 0.1. That's cool.
For myself, I'm gonna go with GG Jackson. He's only projected for 12% ownership, and I've played so much GG Jackson this year. Sometimes it's gone really well. Sometimes it hasn't. Sometimes he's been chalky and done terrible. Sometimes been chalky and he's been all over the place, GG Jackson. But what I've really liked about rostering him is, number one, he always has potential for high upside. If you look at his usage, I mean, he's got a usage rate over the last couple of weeks, 29%. Over the last month, his usage rate is 25%, GG Jackson. And there are these games where he makes his first couple of shots and he just does not stop shooting. He takes a lot of ill-advised shots, but what does Memphis give a shit? The team's terrible. They're not winning right now anyway. And when GG Jackson is playing well, they give him extra playing time. So there's a wide range of outcomes in his minutes. And you see that just by looking through his game log where it's like, hey, 18 minutes, 29 minutes, 30. Some of that's because, randomly everybody's out for the Grizzlies some games, but even in games where everybody's out there, there's a clear ceiling for GG Jackson. I like taking advantage of on some of these small slates where he has lower ownership. So GG Jackson for me at 12% ownership, that is going to be my contrarian play of the night.
I love that call for what it's worth. He's basically Cam Whitmore on a bad team. That's like Cam Whitmore is on a team that's serviceable. And so it always keeps his minutes at like 24 and you never really see that massive upside. Even if he goes out and goes in fuego, Gregory Jackson can play himself into 32 minutes, 34 minutes at any given point in time. And that's just a fun type of like the right tail on his standard deviation curve, like on his bell curve, just looks different to me in my head than every other player on the slate.
Yeah, and I've felt the same way about GG Jackson for I don't know how long now. Like
he's fun to watch.
I've been playing too. GG Jackson. So
yeah, you've been talking about him quite a bit.
So I continue to kind of have the same sort of expectation of him, which is I don't know what to expect. That's kind of cool for GPPs because there's a real upside to him. Like you said, there's a real right tail to him. There's a real left tail to him too, where he could just suck and play 10 minutes. We've seen those sometimes. But that's kind of what keeps his ownership low. Ace of Spade, DK tiers, best options. Eric, do you have lineups built out for DK tiers? If not, I could just rattle it off myself.
I didn't today. I didn't have time. I've just been slammed.
No problem. So for me in tier 1, that is going to be Domantas Sabonis. And then I will ask you this related to the question. If you could pay up for anybody and you didn't have to worry about salary on the slate, is it Sabonis the player you project the highest?
Yes.
All right, so it is a Sabonis in tier 1.
I have so much of him today. So congratulations on. I also bet his under of PRA pretty heavily, and it's not completely uncorrelated. Like, I have tons of Domantas Sabonis in DFS.
What was the because I bet his PRA, I can't remember. I have to look at my bet, either late last night or early this morning. I bet it, I think it was 44 and a half and plus money on the under.
Yeah, we're sponsored by Playback, so I'm happy to throw this out there. I don't think I've ever talked about it. DraftKings Pick 6 has it listed at 44 and a half. It is juiced very, very heavily. Pair it with Dante DiVincenzo under 4.5 threes, which is minus 150 everywhere. And those are two players. I have tons of Sabonis in DFS, and I got in at Dante DiVincenzo 17 and a half minus 110, which is now basically 18 and a half juiced above that everywhere else. So I'm a man of contradiction today, but I think I'm on the right side of it in most of these places.
Tier 2, that is going to be Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. for me. Tier 3, Mikal Bridges. Tier 4, Josh Hart. Tier 5, Malik Monk. And then Tier 6, that is going to be Duncan Robinson. Of all the tiers I went through, Tier 6 with Duncan Robinson, Tier 1 Domantas Sabonis, those are probably the two I feel the best about a lot of these tiers. Lots of players tonight that are projected very, very similarly. But Ace of Spade, thank you very much for your normal super chat there. Now, True Rages is asking us, hey, guys, he had Anthony Simons in his cash games last night. Oof, that was not a great game for Anthony Simons last night. I think he finished with like 10 fantasy points or something like that, but he was super chalky last night. So he says he's going to need a turnaround. With that in mind, who are the top DK cash game plays? So this is where, I mean, just the same as in tournaments, you are loading up on the Miami Heat in tournaments and in cash games for sure. Like, Delon Wright is a must play in tournaments. This is maybe the easiest cash game play of the entire year. He's going to be close to 100% owned in cash games, Delon Wright.
Yes. So, I mean, I basically put the article in as soon as it went down. And I was just like, all right, cool. 100% Delon Wright is the way everybody should be playing. More than likely, they're not very good.
Yeah. So I'm going to say for cash games, your must plays Delon Wright, Bam Adebayo.
Did we lose his mic, or is that just me?
What's that?
Did my mic go away? I keep losing it.
Oh, I was going to say, I think I could hear you, but I don't. Huh.
Okay.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Well, anyway.
Yeah, I can hear you. Am I echoing over in playback? Okay, let me know. I just have it pulled up on Chrome, so let me know.
So I have must plays in cash games. Boy, there's a lot of ways you can go with this. I'm going to say Jaquez, Duncan Robinson, Josh Hart, Bam Adebayo, Delon Wright. Even throw Sabonis in there, not to build your entire lineup for you, but those 6 players, I'd say must plays in cash games. Anybody else outside of that you really consider a must play in cash games? There's so many good options for a small slate.
Yeah, you're playing Delon Wright, Bam Adebayo. I can tell you those two right off the top of my head. If you don't have those two in cash, I don't know what you're doing with your life.
All right, so True Rages today. It's going to go better for you because hopefully there's no Anthony Simons shit in the bed for you on this slate. And then we've got a SC has left us a super chat. He says, just using this to thank you guys for what you do. Well, SC, thank you very much. We do appreciate it. And for everybody, the easiest ways that you could support our content here, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. After the show, go check us out and Playback. And honestly, even if you guys have got some other stuff going on tonight, if you just fired up the Playback chat and you just opened it up on your computer and sat in there, even if you have other stuff to do, really would help us and support the channel a whole bunch. So lots of ways to support us, but super chat, very, very much appreciated there, SC. So appreciate you. And now let's get into our Discord channel, because don't forget, one of the perks of being a Stokastic member, you get access to our Discord channel, and that is no matter which DFS package you're signing up for. So if you're on the Sims package, you get access to Discord. If you sign up for the lineup generator package, you get access to Discord. Links for all of that below. And obviously tools that help Eric and I be very profitable in the NBA DFS streets this year. But for your guys' questions, starting with, I absolutely love when we get this question in Discord. What do you think it might be, Eric?
God. Jordan, don't do it. Not today, please. Not today.
It's not from Jordan. This is Kenny Wayne 256. Eric, what's the
exotic
play of the night? It's a great night for the exotic play. We've got so many to choose from. Sabonis, Duncan Robinson. We've got Kevin Love. There's so many options to go to. How can you not love it tonight? Your answer is going to be Sabonis, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's, again, it's just, I'm just a man of contradiction, but it is what it is. Domantas Sabonis, He's the highest projected, and I'm just getting to lots of him as a result of what else I'm doing with lineups.
I'm going to go with Kevin Love here. He's one of the Heat players that isn't picking up a crazy amount of ownership. And another guy who we talk about players that have a really wide range of outcomes. It could go poorly for them, but the ceiling is very significant. Remember the last time we saw the Heat shorthanded? They actually did play Kevin Love pretty significant minutes. He shot the ball well, and then he ended up having a massive fantasy game. Let me pull up the numbers from that particular game. Now, he's not guaranteed to play any sort of significant minutes, but it's the opportunity to play big minutes that really makes Kevin Love stand out to me. Yeah, it was a game against the Milwaukee Bucks where the Heat were shorthanded. We got 24 minutes out of Kevin Love in that spot. He was knocking down his shots. So he finished with 39.5 fantasy points. It's that kind of upside at a cheap price point that I like from Kevin Love, especially because he's one of the only players on the Heat that isn't really picking up any kind of significant ownership. So Kevin Love for my exotic play of the night. Kevin Love, somebody you have interest in for this slate?
I'm below the field still. I was getting like none of him originally after all of the Heat stuff updated, and I was toying around with what I was going to be doing. And again, I don't want to play 6 Heat guys, and I think Kevin Love's just kind of on the outside looking in. I don't prioritize him over either of the shooting guard, small forward, power forward type pieces that we have, the Duncan Robinsons, the Hami Hawkazes. Obviously, I'm doing one very different thing than the rest of the field today, and that is kind of sending a trickle down to the rest of my lineup construction. And as such, I'm just able to spend up for Bam and Sabonis. I'm able to play, 2 point guards there that I feel are pretty confidently at 3K. Each one of them are going to just give me access to pay up for everything else. I'll probably be chalky-ish everywhere else today. I'm not going to have like mid-range Keegan Murray in bulk. I'm not going to have, a lot of these other guys that aren't necessarily the highest projected at the position. I mean, we only have Scotty Barnes really at forward, who's projected for over 41 fantasy points. So him, Jaren Jackson Jr., I kind of need like decent outcomes from them. But as I just look at my lineups, Kevin Love kind of getting removed more because of his positionality than me just saying I don't like him or I don't think he can win you a tournament.
You know what it's time for now, Eric? It's been a minute since your penis was blown off your body. Jordan, play the animation. It's time for the nuke of the night. I feel like we might have spoiled it already because I can't imagine you're going to go with anybody other than Alonzo Williams. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe you'll end up going somewhere different, and boom, cock and ball's gone. Eric, not the exotic play, but nuke of the night. What do you have for us today? You going to go with Alonzo Williams for the nuke, or maybe you're going to differentiate from this one a little bit?
No, it's been a long time since I've gone on YouTube to research a basketball player that I didn't know who they were. Alonzo Williams, my buddy, my college basketball contact, could have also sent a nice message to Ben Raza, probably the noted expert in that regard. But I basically asked, what do you know about Alonzo Williams? And he started breaking it down for me. And he said, at Wake Forest, the guy could get you a bucket. He didn't really play all that much at Oklahoma, but you saw his last season in college 2 years ago with Wake Forest, and didn't shoot well from 3. Not a great 3-point shooter, but played around 34 minutes a game, shot nearly 51% from the field because he can take it to the rack. He is a wide-shouldered guard. He is out there primarily, and he's not a great defender by any means, but he's more of just like that hustle type guy. He was an ACC Player of the Year in 2022. So as I was working through a lot of the different stuff, just wanted to see like, okay, am I just being asinine here, or is there actual upside for him to actually score and get some steals? He averaged nearly 1.5 steals a game in that senior year of college year, or I guess it would have technically been his junior year there, but his last season of college it was. Played a couple of years at JUCO as well at Triton, but overall, I feel pretty confident in saying that a 3K flat Alonzo Williams when the entire industry, you have to arrive at a number, and I don't blame them for putting 12 or 14 as the number. But we're talking about the only other available guard on a basketball team right now. You could call Duncan Robinson a 2. He's going to play the 2 in the starting lineup. But Delon Wright, he's not going to play 35 minutes, in my opinion, right out of the gate. I think that would be a very shocking outcome to me. Do they even just split those minutes? Because that would be 13 built in for him at 3K. He doesn't have a fantasy point per minute rate that people can point to because he's played all of like 6 minutes this season. 6 minutes, he played in the preseason, 18 minutes, had some fouls there, but he's going to be somebody who I think can finish at the rim. He gets the De'Aaron Fox matchup, Kevin Huerter. These are going to be guys that I think when you're talking about a flat 3K piece and trying to get different at one lineup spot to try to win a tournament, I think he's got a lot more minutes upside. There's no way I'm going to prioritize him over Delon Wright, but I think there's a world where you play both and you just try to live with the consequences of your actions. So Alonzo Williams, if you are somebody who's risk averse, you can stay away. I'm going to embrace the volatility, hope for 20 plus minutes. Alondas Williams, nuke of the night.
We have modest ownership on Tyrese Halliburton tonight. And I just don't think there's any kind of restrictions here to really be worried about it. Sure, he played 31 and a half minutes last game, but they won by 22 points against the Dallas Mavericks. The game before, 34 minutes. The game before that, 34 and a half minutes for Tyrese Halliburton. If you look at his numbers overall for the year, Halliburton's playing 32 minutes per game and averaging 49.2 DraftKings points. Now, we've got a scenario where Tyrese Halliburton is appearing to be playing full allotment of minutes. And with that being the case, we got him projected for north of 50 fantasy points at Stokastic, but still modest ownership, just slightly over 20% for a 4-game slate. Not crazy popular. If this is a big slate, that would be pretty popular. So, I mean, I think Tyrese Halliburton, especially on a slate where there's a ton of value, it's not all that difficult to get to spend ups. A lot of people are going to be getting to Sabonis. I'm going to be getting to a lot of Sabonis, but Halliburton's somebody who I think is worth being well overweight to the field too. He's in about half of my lineups. Tyrese Halliburton, nuke of the night for myself. Is he somebody making it into your lineups at all?
Yes. And there are a lot of the lineups. Again, I don't have like 60% Sabonis, 50% Bam. I'm kind of close to Bam. But it is a lineup spot where Tyrese Halliburton's the other guy I really, really, really want to play on this slate. Love that you threw out my Iowa State Cyclones there as the nuke of the night. Always feels good. Always feels good. Also, with Detroit releasing Killian Hayes, do you think Detroit fans should just like be in a cold sweat all the time that they didn't take Halliburton with that pick? I believe they should.
I just can't imagine they could be down any more than they already are.
That's a good point.
It's
good
like,
point.
hey, like, should they be should the dead man be concerned that somebody's shooting him in the head with a shotgun? It's like, no, he's been dead for a couple of months now. It's not that big of a deal. You can't hurt him
dead already.
Yeah,
So
they can't get more damaged. The team is they broke the record or tied the record, whatever it was, for the longest losing streak in NBA history this year. It's as bad as it gets for Detroit.
Seems bad. And then they almost beat Boston to end it. That would have been hilarious.
Do you want to hear a quick funny story that my sister just texted me here?
I would love to, because, it's a 4-game slate and we've kind of talked about, I have my one outrageous thing and then I have like all boring takes the rest of the day because the Sims tool is doing the rest of the work for me. Continue.
So my sister just sent me a video and texted me this story. She babysits, I think it's like a 4-year-old kid. He was playing outside and he's kind of like hunched over and it looks like he was eating something. So my sister went over to him and said, "Don't eat. Are you eating grass? Don't eat grass." And he said, "Don't worry, it's only boogers," which I thought was hilarious for just little 4-year-old. And she sent me a little video of it too, cute. Which just popped up on my phone. Which I feel like I've been ready. I feel like I am like somebody who has dad humor without being an actual dad. So I guess I'm a father now to a lovely puppy. That's for sure. A 2-year-old, 100-pound Bernese Mountain Dog. Your son-in-law, that is for sure. Your godson. But I am, I'm looking forward to those kind of phases because kids say just ridiculous stuff all the time like that, and it's got to be fun on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, and it was people in the chat now want to know who the booger play of the night is. I'm trying to. So
who do you pick?
Play of the night. What should be the booger play of the night?
Yeah, booger pick of the night.
Ooh, I liked it. So the booger pick of the night, based on this story, what do you think is?
It's got to be yummy though. It's got to be like good, but it's probably terrible. So is it like a bad basketball player that we think will actually perform well? Because I mean that's like half of Miami.
I mean, I guess Delon Wright, Kevin Love, these guys could all be booger picks.
Booger picks. I like those. If I had to go for a booger pick that wasn't on the Heat, RJ Barrett. This is a guy who's 7K, kind of an overpay, but I feel like this is the one team in Toronto going up against Indy in the early window of the game. Like you talked about Halliburton being off the restrictions. We've got a 120 and a 125 implied total here for both of these teams. Toronto at 120. This rotation's gotten more interesting with like Grady Dick, Agbaji. They can get rotated in, but if RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, like if this game stays competitive, you're getting a lot of opportunity for them to just go ballistic. We saw 43 minutes in that overtime. I guess that was a double overtime, so never mind with that. But 36 minutes, it's kind of been a high point in regulation, 37. I know that they're trying to get Grady Dick and Agbaji and these other dudes some minutes. Jordan Nwora, the spot start that we got the other night. Like, I get that they're trying that out, but RJ Barrett, if this game is competitive, is going to play 33, 34 minutes. He sucks. He's terrible, but I am over 20% of the field.
Got a FanDuel question here from Patrick Rose. He wants to know Brunson or Halliburton to pair with right on FanDuel. That is Halliburton for me. That would be Halliburton over Brunson no matter what site. Not to say that Brunson's a bad option today, but Halliburton's a real core play who I'm trying to get into lineups. But Eric, Tyrese Halliburton, $9,700 on FanDuel. Brunson, $9,600. If you're just considering one or the other, Halliburton, Brunson, which direction do you go?
Halliburton.
Yeah, Halliburton for me as well. Thank you for the super chat, Patrick Rose. Phil Senzig, playback is fun. Eric needs a ludicrous bar. Ooh, maybe that's how we'll, right before Eric logs
got a
off
big weed
stash,
at the pocket full of
Josh
cash,
comes
just
in,
seen a big old ass.
Save it for the start of playback. We go over to playback. You'll rap for the people, and that will
got
surely bring in the massive audience.
Pocket full of cash, just seen a big old ass.
There we go. All right. So, Phil, yes, stick around for, we'll have Eric do a brief rap at the start of the playback show. But who's the lotion play of the night, Eric? Who's going to put the lotion in the basket?
Put the lotion on the skin. Who is it going to be? We talked about Scotty Barnes at all? Scotty Barnes is going to be the lotion play. It gets into everything I just talked about for RJ Barrett. I feel far more strongly and confident in Scotty Barnes actually achieving it.
You can tell we're getting to a point where we might have too many of the skits and bits on the shows, because now it's like, I'm trying to think as we get the different things, the exotic play, the nuke, the lotion play. I look through, I've just been going through all of my most rostered players. On a 4-game slate, I'm going to run out of my most rostered players to talk about at a certain point. We are rapidly approaching that. I haven't used Delon Wright for anything yet, so I'm going to go Delon Wright as my lotion play, because I just can't build lineups without Delon Wright.
I'm going to talk about the 90%. This is the first time I felt like Jesse downsided me on Twitter, where he's just like, oh, way to victory lap a 25% owned guy. You just victory lapped and made lotion play of a 90% owned play.
It's my most rostered player. I'm not victory lapping him. I'm just saying I'm playing a lot of them.
That's true, I guess.
I can't victory lap somebody who hasn't started. I think the most interesting thing to talk about, which I'll bring up with Rich, is going to jump on the post-lock show with us. We'll talk a little bit about the Heat rotation and what could happen maybe if things go awry. But yeah, I mean, Delon Wright's currently in 100% of my lineups. Brandon Hudson has left us a super chat. Says, hey guys, what do I put in the percent to first box if I'm playing the $23,000 entry player mini max? So I don't know what the prize pool is for that one. I don't have access to it, but here's how you figure out percentage to first. Whatever the payout to first is, you divide that by the total prize pool, and that is going to be what the percentage to first is. So for instance, if you had a prize pool that was a $400,000 prize pool and it's 100,000 to first, 100,000, that is 25% of 400,000. That's what you set it as in the Sims tool. Eric, are you by chance able to see what the prize to first is in the mini max and the total prize pool is, so we could show him how to do the math? Maybe
can't anymore. No.
Yeah. So whatever it is, Brandon, if it's like a $40,000 prize pool, 10K to first, that would be 25% to first. If it's a $50,000 prize pool and it's 10,000 to first, that would be 20% to first, because 10,000 is 20% of 50,000. So that's how you're going to enter in what the percentage to first is in the Sims tool there. Phil Senzig, Phil's left us a super chat here. He says, both of you search your day list on your Spotify and what comes up. I don't use Spotify, but how about this, Eric? What is a song you've been listening to a lot recently?
A song I've been listening to a lot recently. There's this song that's really cool, and again, this is not going to be like the popular answer for it. Let me find the name of it, because it's one of the more beautiful songs ever. What is the name of that? Hold please. Don't want to just lie. What is the name of it? I just want to give this person a shout out because it's one of the more well-written songs. Chappelle Rowan is her name. It's called Coffee. So The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess is her album. And I've never heard of this person in my life, but was listening to Sirius the other day and this song came on. I was like, man, that is crazy lyrically. It was really beautifully written. So Coffee by Chappelle Rowan.
I've been listening to a lot of Nirvana recently. So I'll say Smells Like Teen Spirit. If it was just like my most recent listen to songs the most, it would be, probably Smells Like Teen Spirit. Thank you for the super chat there. Phil Senzig. Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of like 90s music lately, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nirvana. So that's going to be my answer there. Also, what's kind of cool is all these bands that are like awesome from the 90s. There's a ton of really high quality videos of them on YouTube, so you can watch them perform live, and I've been enjoying that lately. Anyway,
I've also been listening to a lot of heavy metal recently, for what it's worth. A little bit of Cannibal Corpse. I've been listening to some like really heavy metal lately, and something fun might be coming of it. Something fun might be coming of it here in the next day or two. Just be on the lookout. Follow me on Twitter at Eric Lindquist.
All right,
follow
Eric,
me on TikTok at Lindy's Locks. Going to be fun stuff.
Cannibal Corpse, death metal. I had a summer internship many years ago in college at the Prudential Center. A death metal band played a concert I was working at, and my job as an intern was to manage media and get them into the event and situate them and all that. I think I didn't hear for 3 days after that. It was because we had the media that would cover the concerts and would write reviews and all that. We'd have them set up in the front row, which is, like right next to all the sound equipment. And so I would have to be escorting people in and out of there. It was so loud. It was so loud that it physically hurt my eardrums. So I've been haunted by that kind of music ever since. So not for me, the cannibal.
I get it. I like it to work out. Like I think there's not really a whole lot that gets me jacked up quite like that. You just do want to run through a wall sometimes. So I've always enjoyed it for hard workouts.
We've got Ricky Beers says that he loved Cannibal Corpse growing up. He's mentioned that over in playback. Says that he's seen them numerous times live.
Saw him in Iowa back in college, and I was like, man, I was an outlier human being. Imagine me being at that concert, but it was I will say, the more that I've listened to it and like heard the nuances, and you learn about like the pinch harmonics on a guitar, and you kind of get into just like the specific, like the 4 on the floor, the you see how musically talented they are, and I've always enjoyed that aspect of it.
Let's move on here. We'll finish up answering these super chats, and we'll get into Discord and see what your guys' questions are there. If you haven't done yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget, this show ends in 13 minutes, but right after that, going to be heading on over to Playback for another hour to break down all kinds of bets and whatever else might come up as far as late swap goes tonight. But Self 213 wants to know, do we like Luke Kennard over 20.5 fantasy points on FanDuel? We have him a little bit over. We got him for like 19.8. in our projections here. Okay. So actually it's a fairly fair line. If I had to take one, I would lean towards the under on 20.5 for Luke Kennard. How do you feel about that? 20.5 FanDuel fantasy points, which is way different than DraftKings, where Luke Kennard typically scores a little bit better.
Feels good. Feels right.
All right, let's look at the next question. Jake Linlin wants to know, what are our thoughts on Benedict Mathurin over on FanDuel? So in the FanDuel lineups I built, it's not that Mathurin necessarily looks bad or anything like that. He's just a little bit too popular. We got him close to 30% owned. And when I ran everything through on FanDuel and our Sims and whatnot, I got to him in 20% of lineups. So Mathurin certainly in play. If he's somebody who this is just the amount of salary you have, there isn't anybody else I would choose in his spot, but I do think he's a little bit overowned on the slate as a whole there, Jake. But yeah, I don't have an issue with it. If that's the amount of salary you absolutely need to finish the lineup, Matherin's a good option to get to there. Perfect. Shane Daly says Wake Forest, North Carolina, where Wright brothers thrived. Thoughts? And Duncan or Jaime Jaquez Jr. for a 1v1.
So I talked about Wake Forest earlier. So that's Alondas Williams. That was the highlights that I was watching of him. Again, ACC Player of the Year. He's not terrible, but again, he's not NBA caliber for a reason, it would appear. But he'll be playing in the NBA tonight for some minutes. Duncan or Jaquez. So I was kind of breaking the two of them down. I'm getting to more Jaquez, but I think I'm getting to more Duncan Robinson, but I think it has more to do with the shooting guard, small forward positionality than it does, when you have just small forward, power forward, there's only 4 lineup spots you can show up in, 5 when you have shooting guard, small forward. So he's just getting to more lineups as a result of that. But straight up, I do prefer Jaime Jaquez. I have him projected by 1 fantasy point more.
Yeah. So we've got them projected for 0.4 of a fantasy point. Like, that's the difference in their projections over here on Stokastic. So there's very, very minimal difference between them. I'm going to say Duncan Robinson because I do have a little bit more exposure to him, but there's not much differentiating Duncan Robinson and Jaime Jaquez Jr. I'll go with Duncan Robinson, but both of them are really strong plays. I don't think you can go wrong either way. hate to be the guy who rides the fence and plays the middle ground, but they really are similar looking options today. So.
Normally that's where I come in and then you make fun of me. And now it's kind of been the opposite. It's been an enjoyable
but I mean,
experience.
What can you do when two guys have nearly identical projections, same team and whatnot?
Yeah, there's not much you do. You just, you play them.
Let's see what else we have. We're all caught up on Super Chat, so let's get into the questions here from the Discord channel. We got this one from Parker Boy. Parker is asking us chalky, balanced, or contrarian for today's slate. I'd say go with the contrarian setting. You're still going to get yourself to a bunch of the Heat players.
Yep.
If you go like chalky today, you're going to be getting to, I mean, you have lineups like 6 Heat players. If you're building chalky lineups in the lineup generator there, try your hand at contrarian for a 4-game slate. Generally, the way I approach the lineup generator when I'm making recommendations of which settings for people to put them in, and this is a general rule, not the exact same for every slate, but something that's 4 or less games, I'll say side more with the contrarian, anything like 5 to 10 games balance. And if you're going 10 plus games, then you go with chalky, because then you just kind of want the more best projected plays, and ownership becomes less of a concern because you don't get the guys who are like 50, 60% owned on the big slate. So Parker Boy, for today, I say go with the contrarian setting. Master PJ wants to know, he said, EMAC bad beat me last night on that mini max. So I guess that he was close there. He says, the Murray rebound after they cleared the benches put him over the top of me. And then Powell missed a 3-point attempt in the final second. So he's just shout out to our future president, but shout out to Master PJ in our Discord channel, because he came in second in the mini max, falling short only of EMAC. And I mean, listen, EMAC is our Lord and Savior. He's our future chief and commander. EMAC,
Alpha and Omega, beginning and the end, son of man, son of Abraham, second person in the Trinity. That is EMAC.
And at 110 years old, EMAC will be the youngest president in United States history. So vote for him this year. Next question, Phil Senzig, a FanDuel parlay. We're also going to be building some parlays on the post-lock show, but let's look at it here for Phil. I want to look at what the most recent betting odds are. Let's see if there's anything we could find on FanDuel that really stands out to us tonight. I'm going over to OddsShopper, going to sort by FanDuel. Let's see what's looking good. Oh, actually, this does stand out. Plus money on under 9.5 rebounds for Precious Achiuwa tonight, Eric. And I know Precious is playing just massive amounts of minutes. I think that's going to start to, not that it's totally going to go away, but as Hartenstein plays more and more minutes, that's going to come away from Achiuwa a little bit. Now, not to the point where Achiuwa is playing insignificant minutes, but just like a couple weeks ago, this guy was playing like 44 minutes. I think those days are behind him. Actually do like plus money under 9.5 rebounds for Precious Achiuwa. Anything you're liking over on FanDuel to help Phil build his parlay?
Yeah, what podcast was I listening to? They broke it down where they were saying Precious Achiuwa before the All-Star break was like when you have a horse that you're gonna run out because you know it's like the last year of that horse, and you're just like, we're gonna enter him in every race, and then you know that they get a break before the Kentucky Derby. That was basically them treating him before the All-Star break, playing like playoff rotations when they were very shorthanded. They've since got an inflection of guys. They can now do some different lineup construction stuff. Bojan, obviously, Lord Bojan is there. Alec Burks, Miles McBride, but also Jericho Sims, who isn't a complete zero. He can play minutes for Hartenstein or Achiuwa at times, and it hasn't happened a lot for the Achiuwa side of it, but it has the potential to show up eventually.
You actually want to think more about these guys. Is if you think about the players who teams have just run into the ground because they knew they weren't going to be back the next year. Here's the all-time example of this that I could think of. And this is kind of like a poll from a while ago. CeCe Sabathia with the Milwaukee Brewers. Do you remember they traded for him at the deadline? And then it was just, he threw like 125 pitches in 8 or 9 innings in every single start in the second half of the season. Because what do they care about his future? They had no intention of bringing him back.
No regard for humanity.
Yeah,
None.
So that's a good one to think about is players who teams are just kind of willing to run into ground. Now, Tibbs is willing to do that with anybody. He doesn't care. Like Tibbs, the only thing that stopped Tibbs from playing Luol Deng 40 minutes per game is Luol Deng stopped playing basketball.
No, it was Luol Deng's knees coming from Duke, where, again, he was an all-timer to watch in college. And I wish his NBA career, he just a couple of dumb things, like, between that and then just never really had the right kind of team around him. But Luol Deng, that's another good shout out.
Yeah, so just some play. And that wasn't related to contract or anything. That's how Tom Thibodeau has always run his rotations. But let's see what else we have here in Discord. This next question is from Ben P34. He says, thoughts on this boost? You've got them projected for like 41 plus points, so plus 200. Oh, I forgot. Do you have anything for a FanDuel parlay to add for Phil? I gave my leg as a Precious. How about yourself?
Let's throw the Sabonis one in there. I just was responding to Skittles there in the YouTube chat. I think as much as I like Sabonis here, again, he could go for 40 PRA and get the triple double, and I'm going to be happy from the DFS result of that more than likely. I am inclined to be taking that under. It was at 44.5. It's still at 44.5 pick six, but anywhere else, 42.5, 43.5, depending on. I think FanDuel had best available as I was working through it here about an hour and a half ago. I think that is a good thing to go capture right now.
And now here's the question from Ben P. Says, thoughts on this boost? You got them projected for like 41 plus. I don't know what the question is, though. It just says, thoughts on this boost? You've got them projected for like 41 plus points, so plus 200 feels very fair. Is there a way to hedge it? Let me see. Is there another? Oh, here it is. No, just play this. Just play this. So it is Domantas Sabonis and Bam Adebayo. There's a boost over on FanDuel. It's mine. So the line was minus 200. It's boosted to plus 200. Just play that. Just play that. You don't have to hedge that in any kind of way.
Nope. No need.
Yeah. It's Sabonis and Bam Adebayo to combine for 40 plus points at plus 200.
Seems useful.
Yeah. If you try to, like, I don't even know how you would get on the other side of that, but it's not even worthwhile. The most plus EV thing you do is just play the boost. It doesn't mean it's a lock to win, but if it loses, it's not the end of the world. You know, there is a max bet on those sorts of boosts. But another thing to consider too, the most plus EV way to play the boost is you just play them, especially a number like that.
Correct.
Let's see what we have here next. Gang Green is asking us Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Gigi Jackson or Duncan and Murray. So I assume he means, right, there's Keegan Murray is the only Murray on the slate, right? Yeah. So Keegan Murray and Duncan Robinson or Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Gigi Jackson. I am going to say Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Gigi Jackson just because of ownership. Like, I think Gigi Jackson, Keegan Murray, two players who I view as projecting fairly similarly. Same with Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Duncan Robinson. But you're getting less ownership on the first combo. So Jaime Jaquez Jr., Gigi Jackson. Do you have any different opinions there, Eric?
I do not.
All right. Let's see what we have next. This is from M. Bach 005. He wants to know, how certain are we on Delon Wright starting? Maybe Duncan is used as a point guard. I
think Jaquez playing the point is the most likely. I think. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. What was your take there?
Yeah, I'm saying, so I don't think he's a lock to start, but I think it's the most likely scenario that he ends up starting today. And he's still in play if he comes off the bench. I guess what they could do instead is they could go Robinson, Jaquez, maybe they go Morton, Love, and Adebayo and just go really big. But I think it's fairly likely Delon Wright starts at point guard.
I think it is very likely that he starts at point guard too. But Jaquez playing point would be my most likely scenario, I think.
Okay. Oh, so you think that's more likely than Delon Wright starting?
No. No, I'm saying that I think that that's the most likely that is not Delon Wright starting.
Gotcha.
I think that's the most likely scenario, not my Williams character.
Gotcha.
My creative player.
Another question in here. This one is from GQ1 New York City. Last man in for DK, under 4K. He already has Delon Wright. So he wants to know Quentin Grimes or Sharp. I assume that is Shaden Sharp. Or Day'Ron Sharp. Day'Ron Sharp.
Day'Ron, yeah.
Sharp at all? Let's see.
No, I did not.
No, I don't have any lineups with Day'Ron Sharp. I think I have some lineups with Quentin Grimes. I do. Yeah, my answer here is going to be a Quentin Grimes over a Day'Ron Sharp.
Let's chill.
Do you have a real strong feeling between Sharp or Quentin Grimes?
I do not. Quentin Grimes I have way more of, but also there's a positionality element to it, so it's not straight up.
This is true. And by the way, show just about finishing here, but only on YouTube. We're still going to be in playback here. So Jordan, if you wouldn't mind, start getting that playback link.
Ooh.
Throw it into the YouTube chat so people know where to find us over at Playback. If you guys haven't subscribed to our Playback channel, do that in there as well, because for the next hour, I've got a host of people who are going to come in. They're going to chop up all kinds of things with me. We're going to talk a little bit about the DFS slate. If any late swap pops up, we'll shortly be hitting on that, although I don't know how relevant that is going to be for today, other than maybe the fact that we could get some players that end up getting scratched. or weird starting lineups, because other than that, there's nobody who's questionable on the injury report. But if we do get that kind of information, surely it'll come up. But other than that, we're going to be talking about parlays. We're going to be building prize picks cards, talking about basketball, hockey, going to give you all kinds of bets on the Playback Show. So go join us over there, guys. If you are leaving us on YouTube channel, which I really highly suggest you don't, but like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, have yourself a great night. But now it is time for Playback. So let's head on over to Playback. I already see Josh Engleman is in here. So see you guys over there.